everyone. I just wanted to follow up on yesterday when we are talking about some of the patent absurdity when it came to IDF readiness and things like this, and how it impacted soldiers in the field. Obviously, if there was no battle plan and no anticipation that Hamas could ever invade Israel, then it would only make sense that there was also no plan to properly supply all of these soldiers. Because if you never think that something's going to happen, then how would you, or why would you spend the money on something like that? Doesn't make any sense. That's why in Unit 11741, we have been raising money consistently and still need a lot of help to try to get as much to the frontline people as possible. You can find us at unit11741.com. I wanted to start just playing a few videos so people can understand some of what's going on, and I'll actually comment. When we got started with all this, I really had no idea about anything having to do with social media, applications, anything of the sort. So I was definitely a little bit behind the eight ball and not knowing how to maximize getting the word out there. Thank God there's some unbelievable people that have been stepping up nonetheless uh, when we have been able to reach out and had events. But it's important just to understand the starting point. If we don't understand the starting point, then we don't not really going to understand what actually happened. So I just want to be very clear. This is a clip from Channel 12 from June.
משפחה עוזבים בית והולכים להילחם.
נכון דני, ובחודש האחרון אתה כבר שומע בקולם את השחיקה, את העומס, אי השוויון בנטל שמתחיל לחלחל. הם ימשיכו להילחם, הם רוצים להילחם לצד החברים שלהם. אתה תראה עדיין את התושייה ואת אומץ הלב בולטים שם בשדה הקרב בשטח, אבל כשזה מגיע למשפחות הם כבר מתחילים לאבד את תחושת המטרה הגדולה, האסטרטגית יותר, שלשמה הם נלחמו, וזה צריך להדאיג. הדבר השני שאני רוצה לדבר איתך עליו, והוא חמור ביותר, זה המחסור בציוד בצה"ל. צה"ל כל הזמן אומר בשבועות האחרונים שאין מחסור בציוד, אבל אחרי תחקיר נרחב זה לא נכון, כל אחד בעצם יודע את זה. ואני עשיתי תחקיר נרחב בעניין, דיברתי גם עם אנשי סדיר ומילואים ותורמים, וניסיתי להבין מה הפערים.
כן.
אז בואו נדבר על שניים מרכזיים. האחד זה חוסרים. יש הרבה מאוד חוסרים. לא ניתן להכחיש את זה. חוסרים בסיסיים שהם must have ולא nice to have, ואני מדברת...
And I just want to comment here as well that this was in June. So this is well past when in October the leadership of the IDF had said that everything was fine, and they also told nonprofit organizations that everything was fine. So you have this lie that is told and then spreads like wildfire, spreads in the media, spreads all over the place. And many people, unfortunately, believed it. And well-intentioned people that wanted to help just didn't do so in the proper ways because they were lied to by the leadership of the IDF and then by extension, a lot of nonprofits.
איתך על אפודים קרמיים, כוונות, קסדות, סרבלי שריון חסינים מאש, מוניטורים, פלזמות, כלומר ציוד מציל חיים. עכשיו הפער השני טמון בכך שיש את התקן הצה"לי, והתקן הצה"לי לא תמיד תואם לטיב הציוד ואיכות הציוד. יש ציוד מיושן שלא...
Right, so this is very important here. So people would always say, how do you know what you're giving to the Army is of the standard? And the real question that should be asked is, how does the Army know that what it was giving to its soldiers was of the standard? And unfortunately, for tens of thousands of soldiers, the case was that it was not of the standard, because whether that's lack of testing facilities or lack of quality control in inventory and what the Army actually had in stock, there was huge issues, and it's just not true. So when people don't understand the ins and outs about it, they're very, very easily fooled, because they're saying, oh, so what does someone on the street know? What does someone who's not in the Army, what do they know about this issue? And the real question that has to be asked is, what was the testing facility that the Army was using, and how is that determined?
מגן, ואני אומרת לך, ישנם מקרים שאני נמנעת מלחשוף אותם גם מטעמי צנזורה וגם כדי חלילה לא לפגוע במשפחות השכולות לפני שיוצגו בפניהם התחקירים. ישנם מקרים של ציוד מיושן לעומת ציוד חדש. באותו הצוות זה הציל חיים וזה לא, וזה חמור מאוד, ובצה"ל לראשונה מודים בפניי כי יש את הפערים האלה. מה שמעודד בתוך הדבר הזה זה שהם כן רוצים לגשר לעומת המחשבה שלהם בתחילת המלחמה, והם רוצים לקבל את החוסרים האלה ולראות מה אפשר לעשות, ובוא נביא את תגובת...
And I'm not even going to play what the spokesperson says, because what the spokesperson says is just patently absurd. But you know, there's plenty of evidence about exactly what's going on, and you know, it's something that needs to be addressed very, very seriously. Another segment on what happened.
לכתבנו רביד אדרי, הם אומרים, אי אפשר להילחם ככה. הנה הכתבה.
ירינו בקסדה מ-20 מטר, כדור ירוק של קלה, כדור נשאר בתוך הקסדה, לא יוצא.
קסדה צה"לית? חור פגיעה, חור יציאה.
בצה"ל ממשיכים להכחיש שיש מחסור בציוד ללוחמים ושהציוד הקיים לא עומד בסטנדרטים. בעדויות שתשמעו מיד מספרים חיילי מילואים שגם הציוד שכן ניתן להם הוא במקרים רבים ישן, מרופט ואפילו פג תוקף.
זה לא רק שאין מספיק ציוד לכולם, קסדות, וסטים, אמרלים, כוונות, אבל גם הרבה ציוד שיש לנו כבר הוא לא תקין בכלל. אצלנו רוב הקסדות שלנו...
I mean, just take a look at this helmet. Take a look at that, and it's clearly expired. It's 30, 40 years old. Micha does something very brave and actually standing up and saying the reality about it. But we have to just be very, very clear about what happened, what didn't happen. The gear was simply unsafe. So it's not saying, oh, people tried their best or whatever, like this is what happens. No, this is just simply unsafe equipment that had no business being given to any soldier. And unfortunately, found its way into the field. And there's people that just really had no idea, and they bought this thing hook, line, and sinker. So that's a big problem.
מעל 30 ל-40 שנה, וזה אומר שהכדורים והרסיסים נכנסים ויוצאים. כל הקסדות שיש לנו, פשוט בלי. ניסיתי לדבר עם הצבא, עם הלוגיסטיקה, רציתי לבקש עוד, פשוט אין. כל פעם שניסיתי בתוך הצבא, התשובה פשוט היה אין.
גם שין, שנלחם בצפון, מתמודד עם מצב דומה.
אני החלפתי אישית חסתה 3 פעמים, כי זה התפרק לי. גם הווסטים שהיו, גם היו בלי לגמרי, ואפילו החדשים לא מתאימים ליחידה המודרנית, שמענו עליו ולא נתנו לנו ציוד כדי להגן על עצמנו.
הנה דוגמה שנשלחה אלינו השבוע מהשטח, קסדה שניתנה ללוחמים משנת 1978.
אנשים התארגנו פה ברמה של תנוגות, ועשו כסף מחברים ומשפחה, וקנו פה ציוד במצטבר להערכתי במעל ב3 מיליון שקלים. זה לא מהצבא, אפילו קסדה אחת. ואנחנו עם הפריט צפונה, וזה לא שכחים מדאיג אותנו. מי שרוצה לדעת יותר, שירד לשטח ושיספר לחיילים שיש גם כל הציוד וזה איזה שירות מקבל.
רק בשבוע שעבר הצגנו את החוסרים בציוד בסיסי.
אני ראיתי בעיניים שלי איך ציוד כזה, לכוח אחד שהיה הציל את החיילים, ולכוח אחד לידינו שלא היה, חיילים נפגעו.
יש המרנים, אבל בטח לא לכולם, והרנים שהם רמת דקות מאוד נחותה. שתראה מאיך פתאום השנייה האחרונה, רואה שכמעט קצת טורטיב, איך אמרה עליו, שלא יספרו סיפורים שיש להם פלסים.
כי מהארץ והעולם מנסים לסייע בציוד, אבל אפילו הם נתקלים בקשיים בירוקרטיים שמונעים מהתרומות להגיע ליעדן.
צה"ל החליט לעצור את נושא התרומות ולא לאשר יותר תרומות. יש הרבה ציוד צבאי תקין והכרחי לחיילים שנמצא בעצם במכס ולא ניתן לשחרר אותו.
נכון להיום, אם מקשיבים לשטח, הפערים עדיין גדולים. חלק מהציוד הקיים פג תוקף, והתשובות של צה"ל לא מספקות את הלוחמים.
וזו התגובה של דובר צה"ל.
And again, we're not going to play the response from Dover Tzal. It's absolutely inexcusable and completely detached from reality. So there's no reason to even entertain what they're saying there because it's so patently false. And again, this is the stuff that we have to just be able to see through. We have to be able to talk about in reality when we're discussing some of the issues with equipment that were obvious to anybody who was paying attention and were obvious to anybody who was talking to the soldiers. Because if you're in contact with the soldiers, it was pretty obvious. I want to share. I made one video here that I shared, and this was from Eliyahu Zimbalist, Hashem Yikom Damo, and this is something that is worth remembering. Sometime around January, my WhatsApp reset, and unfortunately, I lost a few months' worth of correspondence during this war. But as I was reviewing some messages, I stumbled upon a conversation I had with Eliyahu Zimbalist, Hashem Yikom Damo, who fell this last weekend in Gaza. And I want to share with you what he asked of me. When he exited Gaza, he wasn't concerned for himself, he was concerned about his friends. And it's very powerful that that's where his head was when he finally got out of Gaza. His neshama shev Aliyah, and we need more people like him.
Hey, so I had spoken to you a few weeks ago, Eliyahu, from 601, to get gear for my friends that didn't have helmets and uniforms and what's in the vest. You had said you'd get it to me, but then I went into Gaza and I haven't been able to reach out to you since. And now I came back out. We're going back in the next day or two, and I want to know if you'll be able to get us this gear. I'd appreciate it if you can.
Right, so Eliyahu.
This morning, Egypt says negotiations are underway between Israel.
And again, this is just one example of one soldier. We have plenty others that truly needed equipment and it wasn't coming through. People, he was looking out for his friends when he came out. But the concept that people could even claim that there was no shortages is patently absurd. And it needs to be called out because the issues were so extensive. Really, really, truly so extensive. And it's not without consequences because when people are told not to help, they take it seriously and they actually think that this is the truth. But when it's not the truth, there are major consequences. And people got injured or, God forbid, unfortunately, people fell in bad equipment. And it's unsure. I'm unsure how that's an acceptable thing. And people need to continue to call this out because it's not a victimless spread of misinformation. There are people that actually were injured, killed, and needed help and didn't get it. And some of the leadership of the IDF continue to just spread fake news. And it needs to be called out, and it needs to be called out very intensely. So it's not even really a discussion. It's so beyond obvious that at this point, the idea that it even has to be said is quite crazy for anybody who's been paying attention and anybody who's been in touch with any of the soldiers on the front lines. And I will just say that there are some soldiers in some units that are okay, but don't let people think that just because a couple, some units are okay and some of the more advanced units might be okay, that in any way talks about the entire army. And you also have to ask where all this gear came from. It's not just that it popped up out of nowhere. Okay, so a lot of these things were not actually provided in proper time, and then that's what happens. So it's not if the gear is fundraised and provided, it doesn't mean that the army caught up, and we should never let people try to claim that because it's just completely misleading. and it's upsetting. So I have this here. Hold on. When you showed up, and obviously, what we were focused on at Unit 11741 is equipment. When you showed up, what did the situation look like for equipment?
There was nothing to speak of. It was basically just whatever you had.
Okay, so as we see here, it's pretty clear it was not anyone who claims that everything was fine was lying, and there has to be some sort of accountability loop. There has to be some sort of there just has to be some sort of way that people if you went out there and you intentionally misled people, it's not a victimless issue. It's very serious, and there needs to be real accountability for what happened and how this was allowed to happen, and how soldiers were left having to fundraise, and it's deeply troubling. It's deeply troubling, and just the idea that soldiers are still, people still have gaps today, and it's. Let's be clear: being ready does not mean having exactly enough for the people that happen to be in the field that day. That is not being ready. Being ready is not having to worry that when something goes sideways, that there may or may not be enough equipment for everyone. There needs to be stuff in reserves on, in storage, trying to be able, so people are able to help. And that requires radical accountability. So for anyone that wants to keep helping and trying to promote this radical accountability that is needed, please reach out. Please continue to reach out. Please continue to follow. Visit us at unit11741.com. That's where we are. And it's one of the most rewarding things when you see that you're making a difference on the front lines, trying to help people. And to get a call saying you helped save someone's life, it's hard to really put into words what that means. And while it's unfortunate that it came to this, and it's unfortunate that this is what's needed, at the same time, it's at the same time, it is truly meaningful, because you are able to really make a difference in people's lives. And working with this here, no, you're able to make a difference in people's lives and see your impact when you get that call saying that someone's going to be able to return to their family because you are able to help them. It's really hard to even put into words what that feels like. So I hope this provided some sort of clarity in terms of what's going on. But at Unit 11741, we're doing everything we possibly can to try to help and encourage anyone who has the ability, keep spreading the word, keep talking, keep discussing this issue, because those on the front lines really do need our help. And they're going to need our help for the foreseeable future to make sure that all of the gaps are fixed. And just in the same way that the Army needs to reevaluate how it thinks about combat and things like that, that includes how they think about gear for when they do need to do that. So don't underestimate the need. If there's any questions, please feel free to reach out. And we're in touch on a daily basis with people that truly do need help. We have millions of dollars of requests still out there, and we're here to help however we can. So thanks again for tuning in, and Shabbat Shalom.